There is so many amazing things to say about Laurie, but one of the things that sticks out the most in my mind is how easy it is to work with her, to talk to her. She is just her spirit is so admirable, and just, you can tell that she really loves what she does. She really wants to help you, and you feel like you can tell her what's going on, why you're not making the podcast happen, what is happening in the background. And she really meets you where you're at, and she does not push you. She wants you to develop, but she does not push you in the way of making you do something that you don't want to do. It's really all about, what do you really desire? And it's okay if you're scared of that. We can still do it anyways. And I love, love, love that about her. I also love her content. She has so much education to give. Her program has been so amazing to go through. And I'm so happy that in my midst of being chaotic and overwhelmed and feeling like maybe I can't do this, she reached directly out to me and worked with me one-on-one until I got my podcast together. And I'm so excited about it. It finally dropped, and it's just an amazing feeling. So if you have been wanting to make a podcast and you're on the fence, I highly recommend Laurie. She's amazing. Her spirit is amazing, and you will love the education and just working with her because she's just so much fun.
The middle of the story. It's the pivotal place where transformation starts. It's where conflict happens. It's where challenges happen. Act 2 can determine the rest of our story.
Has your life, your dreams been interrupted? Good news. It is possible to reinvent our lives. People are doing it every day, and some are brave enough to share the struggles, disappointments, and challenges. If you are looking for a new beginning, a do-over, or to rediscover your passion, maybe even find a new one, then grab a cup of coffee and let's talk. Interrupted, Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy, with your host, Coach Laurie.
Tracy Glass is an author of not just one book, but 3. And I love the title of your latest book. Boy, I wish I would have had it 30 years ago. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you, Laurie, for having me. I'm so excited to be on your podcast. I love the name, Interrupted. I love reinventing. I feel like that's my life story.
Thank you. Well, tell us about your 3 books, the titles, so people can get them, and then we'll talk about the last one, the most recent one. Does that sound good?
Sure. My writing journey started with my first book, which is called All Things New. Laurie, it was not supposed to be a book, honestly. I didn't start that way. It was really devotional writing entries because I was in a place of pain in that season of my life. I had just started walking through a divorce. Part of my healing process is I decided to start journaling. That journaling became a weekly blog that I was sent out. And then that became my first book. It's a 90-day devotional, and it's called All Things New. My second book, wow, it's as quickly as I released my first book, it seemed like I got a download for my second book. But what I realize now is each book was a place in my restoration journey, or a phase in me reinventing myself. So my second book is called Get Up, Girl, Let's Go, Getting Unstuck and Living Free. That one was not a devotional. That was a chapter book where I talked about just how things that we go through in life can get us stuck, but we need to move from those places so that we can move forward into our callings, into reinventing ourselves, and us becoming the people and women that God created us to be. So that was my second book. And then my third book emerged because I had written all of these devotionals. You know, when I wrote my first book, there was just a plethora of devotionals I was writing. One day I just felt God spoke to me and said, what are you going to do with the rest of those that you have? I mean, they were just kind of sitting. So that became my third book, which is specifically for women that are walking through separation and divorce. That's how the three books emerged, basically out of my pain, how God used my pain and then turned it into my purpose.
I love that you say your pain has turned into your purpose. We hear our message, our mess into our message. And when I went through my divorce, I couldn't really write about divorce, but I wrote about being a single parent. And it's not a parenting book, it's a coaching book on how do we keep going when now we're doing everything? How do we choose our battles? And I think that that's a lot of what you do is helping people. You're not just telling them, you're then helping them move to the next step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny you say that because I think probably after I wrote my second book, I decided that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to coach people. So I went back and I got certified as a professional coach. And that's what I started doing in ministry, is just helping women heal, supporting them, holding their hand when they can't themselves, and seeing hope for them when it's pretty bleak out there. So that's become my passion.
For me, now this was a long time ago, but divorce seemed today is still very difficult. It's hard as a Christian.
Well, yes, because divorce in the church is not really talked about. Classify it, Laurie, as a D, like you have a D.
Yeah, like the big A on your forehead, you've got the D.
Demerit. You failed in some way.
Yeah,
And
that's how I felt.
you know, the scripture says that God hates divorce. So when I went through it, I thought, well, okay, does that mean God hates me as well? And of course, I later learned that no, he didn't hate me. He actually loved me more as I was walking through this horrific challenge in my life. I think that that's why I wanted to start coaching women that were walking through divorce and separation. I remember one day I was traveling an hour and a half to a coach who specialized in, I think it was just restoration and pain, people walking through that. She wasn't close, and I didn't know anybody in my church. And actually, I didn't feel safe with anybody because they had not walked through this journey. So I just remember one day driving to her, and I said to myself, I never want anybody else to feel alone if they're walking through a similar situation. I did not know that later on I would become a person that someone can come to, or later I've established a community where women can come to and we can support each other in the process. But you're absolutely right. The church the church doesn't understand, in my opinion, healing, period. When people go through horrific things in their life, what does that process? Maybe it's not divorce, maybe it's abuse, maybe it's some other things. And I think it's areas where the church can really sharpen up to help people so they don't have to hide when they go through pain.
And that's what I loved about when I first met you and I saw what you did. I was so excited because being a person in church, I felt judged, and it was their ignorance. But I know coached who both partners are, in the same church, and one's maybe narcissist, not actually diagnosed, but appears to have the symptoms. Often the church ends up choosing them over the person who is going through the abuse, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah, and I have seen that as well. Just being in mentoring and in coaching, there is a pattern with women, because I only coach women, but coming to me, and it's been, of course, childhood. It starts in childhood. A lot of our unresolved issues, but how those unresolved issues just carry over in our life into adulthood, and unfortunately try to define us incorrectly, right? As women, it's a breaking down, and it's a rebuilding. It's your podcast. It's how do we reinvent ourselves after we've gone through a major horrific trial, such as divorce, separation, abuse, or any other issue in life. And for me, that process started with just going deeper in my relationship with the Lord.
Something that I hear from women going through all of those, including death of a partner, is they say, now Who am I?
Ooh, yes. Yes. That
So I'm
is a
sure that's something that you coach around.
that, that is a valid question. Honestly, Laurie, I feel like I've always asked myself that question, even though I'm on the other side of divorce and grief and things. But I'm always asking myself, who am I? So I think it's a great question. But you're right. When we go through a divorce and separation, it is a ripping away of identity. Of at one time we were this cohesive family unit. There was a mother, a father, a family. And now when you go through divorce, that's all ripped apart. And sometimes it's ripped apart suddenly, right? And so there's so many layers. I liken it to like an onion, how it just you just don't ever feel like you're going to get to the core of it because there's so many layers. You pull off one layer, you think that you've healed, and then whoa, there's another layer that you have to go through. Identity is a big one that you lose. You have to reinvent and ask, who am I in this season? Act two of my life. Who am I becoming? And it was so interesting because I was looking up the definition of Act Two, because we hear the term all the time, of course, when you go to a play and things like that. But it was really interesting. It said it's the middle of the story, it's the pivotal place where transformation starts, it's where conflict happens. It's where challenges happen. Act two can determine the rest of our story. Oftentimes when we're asking ourselves, like, who am I? It's a great question because we have the ability to create something new with our story. It's not over when we go through tragedy, grief, loss, divorce, abuse, or whatever a woman may be facing in this time. It is a beautiful opportunity for us to say that, wait, I can't wait till I get to the other side of this mess, of this situation. So Act Two can be just a beautiful, pivotal place.
That was a feeling I always had. It's over. I'm ruined. And that's why I started this podcast, because what I realized is what you said in the very beginning. It's an iteration. We keep cycling, we keep learning. And I think sometimes a problem is we get through something, we want to put a big bow, wrap it up, and say, I'm done. But what you mentioned is so much of it goes back to childhood trauma. And I remember when I was getting divorced, my Christian friend who was a pastor's wife said, that's because you didn't pray enough before you got married. But the truth was, because they didn't know, right? The truth was, I had been an abused child and I found familiar.
Yes.
Going through that divorce and then going through counseling, it started to make me recognize why people choose the same, because they're choosing familiar because they haven't resolved those issues. So that's probably a lot of the work you have to do.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and it's so true. It's not a matter if we're praying hard enough. It's a matter of, are we addressing our brokenness? And that's what I talk to a lot of women that I coach, is that let's address the brokenness so that we can heal. And then when we heal, we can make better and wiser choices. I just remember walking through a divorce. I felt like I had a broken wing. It was a joke. I'm like, I have a broken wing. And when you have a broken wing, you just don't function. You hurt. You can't fly. Your thinking is off. And so I had to heal that broken wing. And then I could be able, I could see better. I could dream again. I could do certain things. But as you know, the journey of healing, boy, that's a process, and it's a commitment, and it can be painful, but it's the best thing that a person can do if they're walking through a divorce, separation, or any other type of loss, relational loss.
What would you say is the biggest challenge women are facing when they're walking through a divorce?
Biggest challenge is when we meet somebody, it's the happily ever after syndrome, that I don't deserve this. Why is this happening to me? I have done everything right. I have been the best wife. I can't believe that this has happened. So it's wrapping their head around the reality of the situation, whether it be betrayal, rejection, infidelity, or whatever it may be. It's the immediate shift of my life as I have known it is doesn't exist. And I want to go back to it because that was normal for me. This was safe, even though it was dysfunctional. I could predict it and it was safe. And that's what I want. I believe that that's the biggest. It's where do I go from here? How do I pick up the broken pieces? I mean, I know you probably remember Humpty Dumpty, the rhyme. Well, it's like that. It's like Humpty Dumpty, he fell, right? And he shattered into a million pieces. And what do I do? How do I put myself back together after that?
You talked about community, and for me, I lived on a small island. My husband came out of the closet, and everybody knew. I wanted to be respectful of my kids, of everyone, but it was difficult on a small island. However, there was a great community, and it wasn't him versus me. It was like, how can we support this family? And I was really grateful for that because of small schools. So teachers knew if kids were getting bullied, things like that. But I was so grateful without internet that I had community. I had good friends who would come over and like I remember one time my girlfriend called and I go, I'm just still so sad. And she said, of course you are. Of course you are. And it was things like that that got me through.
Community is probably the number one thing that you want to do when you're trying to heal is stay in community because as you mentioned, Laurie, the thought when you go through something that is hurtful, embarrassing, or there's loss is to hide.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around people. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. We don't want people to judge us in any way, but it's opposite of what we really need. And I'm so thankful in your story that that community came around you and really blessed you, right? Loved on you because community has the ability to definitely heal us. That was my story when I had a great church, even though I didn't have anybody to talk to because they had not been through my particular situation. I had amazing community of women that are still my friends today that came around me. And if they hadn't have done that, Laurie, I probably wouldn't have written the books. I wouldn't have gone into coaching because it was their words and their love that really catapulted me into my calling. So it's a community is a blessing.
Yeah. And this is something we often hear. It sounds like, I don't know, scandalous. Sometimes it's the best thing that could have happened to us because it pushes us out of our comfort zone. Maybe we weren't living our true life. A lot of things where sometimes we realize maybe we had a problem. There's an author I love, and she just went through this very public divorce. And her friend Brene Brown, of all things, called her and said, get a paper and pencil, read this book by Melody Beattie, Codependent No More. And she had to recognize that she was trying to cover and make the story right for everybody, and she was doing it with her kids. So really, as awful as it was, the blessing was she realized she was codependent and she could start getting healing and change how she interacted with all of the people around her.
That's powerful. That is so powerful. And it's a part of it too, as we go through the healing process, we can begin to see things like that. We think about, okay, why did I make that decision? Why did I choose to maybe marry that person? Or why am I not moving forward? And we can hold a mirror up and say, it's because I'm afraid. Yeah. Or it's because I don't have the tools. I don't know how. to heal. It's because I have a lot of shame. And when we begin to identify those things, then we can really move forward and become aware. Awareness is so powerful, right? When we become aware of, I see this as a pattern. I do this every single time, right? I get into this spot and then we can identify that, wait, how do I break this cycle? And that's really how we heal and we move forward.
Yeah, that's so true. In my book, I talk about how I easily blamed him for everything. And one day I had this come to Jesus moment because I had become a life coach. And that was back in the day when headsets were first a thing. You're still connected to the wall, but you could work from home and wear those big headsets.
Right.
And I was blaming him for my coaching business. Now, we didn't have internet. I had a hard time figuring out how to start this coaching business. But I realized I'm on my own now and I'm still not doing it. That's on me. And so I had to recognize again what my contribution was. And blaming doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't mean that there might not be things either side, but I could then begin to look at what am I doing and how do I move forward with this coaching business, stop blaming him. And part of it too was I'm a coach and I'm divorced. Who's gonna listen to me?
Exactly. The D that I'm
disqualified. Yeah. Yes.
Wow. So what would you say, what was your biggest obstacle, Laurie, in moving forward in starting your coaching business?
I think it was the shame and guilt. Mm-hmm. I'm actually reading this book. She's born sociopath, but she's not a murderer or anything, but she doesn't have those feelings. She's actually a very successful lawyer. And she finally, when she was diagnosed, she wrote this book about what it was like. And I thought, she goes, I don't have shame and guilt. That's just, I watch people, I try to learn how to behave, but I can do a lot of things because I don't have shame and guilt. And that shame and guilt not only was from divorce, but again, it was those layers of childhood. I've done so much work on understanding the difference between guilt and shame, and then how to move forward and let go of my own story. My own story, Tracy.
Yeah. That's powerful. And, I learned the difference between shame and guilt as well. Shame is like shame on me. Like when someone tells you you're bad or you don't measure up. It's an internal thing where I go inside and I feel like there is something wrong with me. But guilt is something that I might feel that I've done to someone else, that I have hurt someone else in a way. And so, but both of them will definitely stop us in our tracks from moving forward in the things that we're called to do. I know the one for me right now, Laurie, that I still deal with is fear. Fear is a big one. Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. As I even have become an author, this is a act 2 thing for me. I wasn't the girl that was always journaling and had this big library of all these books. 10 years ago, when I began to walk through the divorce, actually it was 16 years ago, but 2014. So what is that? Almost 12 years ago, when I just felt like I have something to say. I had been bottled up with not being able to express myself, express my pain. And part of that was, I think, how I was raised and being in the church of trusting God, believing God, and checking all the boxes off. I did everything right.
Hi, I'm Laurie Hardy, and I help business owners go from frustration to ease when it comes to podcasting. If you're looking to boost your credibility and grow your business but feel overwhelmed by the process, I've got you covered. With over 30 years of experience in top radio markets, I know how to make your voice heard. My 7-day Podcast Pro program helps you move from scattered and unsure to confidently launching and maintaining a podcast that connects with your audience, builds your legacy. It's done with ease and minimal time. Plus, I'll share insider tips to help you rank in the top 5%.
When I just felt like I have something to say, I had been bottled up with not being able to express myself, express my pain. And part of that was, I think, how I was raised and being in the church, of trusting God, believing God, and checking all the boxes off. I did everything right. This was not supposed to be part of my story. How did it end up this way when I have done everything right? And so it's a thing of, this is very unfair, but I just began to write out all my emotions. I just began to express them. And it was so liberating, because I didn't realize that my voice had been shut up for years. I wasn't able to express what was going on with me. It was like I was a human doing. I wasn't a human being. That, oh, Tracy does this well, and she's a good wife, a good mother, a good employee. But what about Tracy, the woman who I am? And I had to discover her. And that came out through my writing. For me, that's when the Act Two really started. I call it the 2.0 version of me, the new, improved version of who I was when I went through this. And so I had to face that. I had to face that I have this D, and now I'm supposed to write, and who's going to listen to me? And do I really have to tell my story? And how vulnerable do I need to be? It was all of these things that went through my mind, of just, Tracy, you go in a corner and you sit down and shut up. Fear. Mm-hmm. That's the voice of it. Tells us to hold back. It tells us not to be great. It tells us not to walk in our calling. It tells us not to dream. And so I had to have a face-to-face confrontation with fear to overcome and to really step into the journey, the reinventing of myself, which was becoming an author and a coach, and realize that because of what I've gone through, my conflict, my pain, people want authenticity. People want to hear that my life is not all together. And they want to hear about, how have you reinvented yourself? Because I'm there. What did you do? And when we can begin to speak to people in that place of just being real, that me too, I'm there and I still go through that. I think that is where the transformation happens with people's lives, because we take off the mask of feeling like I have to be this super duper Christian to be perfect. I don't. God just wants us to be us, and to be the best version of us. And to your point earlier, Laurie, I have said many times that one day I will probably give my ex a thank you note. He initiated the divorce. I didn't want it, but without the going through the process, I would not have reinvented myself. I would have stayed stuck. That's honest.
Yeah. And Tracy, here's the thing. A lot of people do. A lot of people stay in that place. And I'm not faulting them, because of the very thing you said, fear. And the one thing that isn't talked about is fear. And also, because we should have faith, but also this is what I work with older women, and they've either like gone through a divorce after 20 some years of marriage, or their partner passes and they have fear, or they're afraid their partner's going to pass, and they're living in this fear. And me, as a single woman with no 401k, no nest egg, no nothing from the divorce, it's easy for me to wake up in fear. And for me, every day I have to say, I trust you, God. I remember when you walked with me through this. But also to say that to people feels a little trite. And so you said you had your reckoning with fear. What was that like? How did you face it?
I'll share a story with you. And my background's in sales and marketing. And I was just getting started on social media. And there was this, I knew I needed to work on building my mailing list and my subscribers to sell books. That's just the things that us authors have to do. In a Wednesday night service at our church, I was asked to speak about a topic, and it was on miracles, some miracles that happened in the Bible. And someone recorded me, and I had the brilliant idea that, oh, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a challenge on social media so that I can build my subscribers, I can build my mailing list, and then I can encourage hope in people's lives as well. And it was a big thing. It was a big production. But when it was time, I said, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I am not the subject matter expert on miracles. Actually, I still need some miracles. So why am I talking about miracles? And so I sat with it, and I had a dream. And it was me and God. And he led me to a door. And he opened the door. And behind the door, it was all of these presents. They were beautifully wrapped. And I thought, oh, is this for me? And he said, no, they're not. They would have been for you if you wouldn't have been afraid, and you just would have gone forward in what I asked you to do. And this was related to this social media challenge. And so after the dream, guess what I did, Laurie? I did it. I did it. And I said, okay, God, I'll do this, but I'll be happy if 25 people sign up. Okay. By the time it was starting, over 300 people had signed up for it. Wow. And so God clearly spoke to me and said, don't ever put me in a box. Yeah. So he wanted to show me a miracle before I talked about miracles or release this particular challenge. But that taught me something about fear. When God is in it, I don't need to be concerned. He tells me to do something, then he's going to help it. He's going to give me the resources. He's going to bless it. And I've learned that, Laurie. I don't hesitate now when I have to do something, because if God has asked me to do it, that means that all I need to do is just show up. Right? Just I'll plan it and show up, and then he'll do the rest for me. And so I think for me that was really a breaking point where I just decided that, you know what, in this process of being an author, reinventing my story and whatever else he might have, I have to just totally trust him as I go, each step, one step at a time.
So I don't know if you saw my reaction, but I felt like you were stabbing me in the heart, because there's been times when I've launched and I've been afraid, but I have this big dream to bring 6 to 10 ladies together for a podcast retreat. We'll do everything that weekend. We'll all be a group. We'll all support each other. You'll walk away with a podcast. You'll walk away with a group of ladies supporting you. You'll have followers and subscribers. And it all was so beautiful. And I felt like it was like, I don't ever feel like God's talking to me, but it felt like the next right thing. And then I was hit with the fear, and I stopped doing everything. And when you told that story, I went, okay, I'm going to step into this. I'm not going to not be afraid, because I can't not be afraid, but I will choose to do it afraid and trust. And thank you for that story, because now I feel like I'm not only accountable to my people, but now to you.
Yes. Well, get your presents behind that door, okay? There's lots of presents and gifts.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Tracy, you have touched on so many amazing, wonderful things, and I just know you are a gift to the people that reach out to you. If somebody wants to work with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Okay. Wow. They can go to my website, tracyglasscoaching.com. They can also message me on Facebook or Instagram. I am Tracy Glass. And those are the best ways to reach out. Or they can email me at info@tracyglasscoaching.com.
And if they want to buy your book.
Yes, if they want to buy my book, well, okay, all 3 of them. You could go to Amazon. The first one is All Things New, which is a 90-day devotional. The second one is called Get Up Girl, Let's Go. And my last book is called Restored. And so, yes, all on Amazon.
Awesome. Tracy Glass, before you go, it's been such a pleasure to meet you and hang out with you. But what is it you really want us to know?
It's not the end of your story. I mean, have been talking about divorce and fear or some other things, relational loss, but it's not the end of your story if that is you. And how you can make your first act into your second act. And even though you're walking through some conflict right now, pain, and you just don't know where you're going, I want to encourage everybody to hold on. Just hold on. I'm a Christian. I know you are too. Faith has so much to do with my stability, reinventing me. And so I want to encourage listeners to pray and just stay focused in your spiritual walk. But I look at Act 2 as kind of like our blank canvas, right? It's now we have the ability to recreate a story. And that story is not going back to anything old. There is nothing in this season, this act of my life that represents my Act 1, except my children. That's it. But everything else is new. And so I just want to encourage everybody with that. If you're stuck, please get into community somewhere. Yeah. Please find a church or a community that can support you, that you feel safe with, because that is so important as we walk out of Act 1 into Act 2 and 3 and 4, because I believe there's more acts in life.
I don't know whether to say amen or thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, it was a pleasure being on. Thank you, Laurie. I appreciate it.
If you love this podcast, here's a big ask. Will you share with your friends and family, subscribe, give us a review, and a 5-star rating so that others looking to reinvent their lives will be able to get the help they're looking for? Thank you in advance.